Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper analysis from the perspective of UPSC examination. Today we have taken up important news and article from The Hindu and Indian Express newspaper, New Delhi edition dated 13th October 2023. Now, as you know, we have segregated this discussion in two parts. The first one is prelims, where we are going to take up four important topics that featured in Indian Express and The Hindu. This includes the money bill, the presence of bauxite ore in India, tea plantation, and there was very important news that featured in Indian Express newspaper that new finding has kind of brought out a concerning information that ozone hole above the Antarctic is again expanding. From the mains perspective, the caste census is persistently in news, so we will be taking the caste census and various aspects related to it. And there is a report on hunger index. Index itself is important from the perspective of examination. But what we have done that apart from covering the prelims specific information of this index, we are going to cover the hunger aspect altogether from the perspective of UPSC examination. So let us begin our discussion with the prelims discussion. So as we discussed that the first news is related to money bill. Now a seven judge constitutional bench headed by CJI DY Chandrachud has agreed to take note of priority hearing of money bill cases. Now, opposition has accused the ruling party several times of taking route of money bill to circumventing the scrutiny of Rajya Sabha. Now, some petitioners went to the Supreme Court for the same matter, and finally, Supreme Court agreed to take call upon their petitions. In a previous discussion, also, you understood that the petition related to the electoral bond scheme is falling. The one of the concern is that the electoral bond scheme was passed as a money bill. So how it is important from the examination perspective? If you will look into the GS paper 2, the parliament, structure, functioning, conduct of business, powers, privileges, and issues arising out of these have been mentioned. Now, this is clearly an issue which is arising out of the functioning of the parliament. So, if you want to cover the details of the money bill, it has already been covered by Vidushi ma'am in the DNS dated 7th October 2023. You can refer to this DNS for better understanding of nitty-gritties related to money bill. What we are going to take up in this discussion is we will be looking some differences between money bill and ordinary bill through a practice MCQ. As you can see in 2018 also, UPSC has asked a question based on money bill, and these provisions are recurring theme in UPSC examination. Now first, take up the practice MCQ, then I will tell you the answer for the PYQ. Meanwhile, if anyone knows the answer of the PYQ, you can comment in the comment box given below. You can give your answer there. So let's take up the practice MCQ. Question says, with respect to the legislative procedures regarding different kinds of bills in the parliament, consider the following statements. You have to identify the correct ones. Statement 1 says, both ordinary bills and money bills can be introduced in either houses of parliament. Now, this statement is incorrect, as there are some clear distinction between an ordinary bill and a money bill, and one of them is that money bill can only be introduced in the lower house of the parliament, that is Lok Sabha. Second statement says both ordinary bills and money bills can be introduced by any member of the house. Now this statement is again incorrect, as The case of ordinary bill, this fact is correct, but money bill can only be introduced by a minister, not by a private member. That brings us to the third statement, that in case of a deadlock between both the houses, the only option for both ordinary bills and money bills is a joint sitting of both the houses. Now this statement is again incorrect, as there is no provision of joint sitting for the money bill. The upper house, that is Rajya Sabha, gets 14 days time to give bill back to the originating house, that is Lok Sabha. And if it is done or it is not done, the bill is presented to the president for his approval. So there is no provision of joint sitting as such in case of money bill. So as you had to find the correct statements, our answer would be D, that is none. Answer for this PYQ is C, that is a money bill is concerned with the appropriation of monies out of the contingency fund of India. Now further details regarding the difference between money bill and ordinary bill has been provided in the PDF, for which the link has been provided in the description box. Moving on to the second news, this news featured on page number 8 of the Hindu newspaper. Now news is kind of article which covers various dimensions in the state of Odisha. Now we all know that Odisha is a mineral rich state. Bauxite is one of them. Now this enriched character of Odisha regarding the bauxite ore has attracted many mining companies there. Now this article, the author of this article has covered the impact of these mining projects on environment as well as tribal living in and around Niyamgiri Hills area. So how it is important? If you will refer to General Studies paper 1 syllabus, the natural resources has been mentioned. Apart from that, if General Study paper 3, you will consider General Study paper 3, environment aspect is also mentioned there. And taking cue from the previous year UPSC question, UPSC has always asked question based on ore and minerals. In yesterday's session, you also saw that there were questions related to ores and minerals. Here also, we have taken up a previous year question which says that consider the following statement and you have to identify the correct statements. Now, try to attempt this PYQ and let us know your answer in the comment box. Meanwhile, we will be taking the practice MCQ to match our understanding with the findings of the article, which is here. Question says that consider the following statements. Here again, you have to identify the correct ones. Statement 1 says Odisha is the largest producer of bauxite in India. This is a correct statement, as Odisha alone accounts for around 51% of the total bauxite production in India. Now the second statement says India is the largest producer of bauxite in India. This statement is incorrect, as India's share in total bauxite production of the world is just 6%, while Australia is the largest producer of bauxite in the world. Third statement says bauxite is concentrated in northern and northwestern parts of India, which is again an incorrect statement, because concentration of bauxite is most prominent in the eastern Ghats and southeastern parts of India. It is not north and northwestern part. So you had to find the correct statement. The answer would be A, that is 1 only. Details related to bauxite production and its spread all over India is again provided in the PDF, for which link has been provided to you. Now the next news, which is important from the prelims perspective, featured on page number 18 of the Hindu newspaper. Now Indian Tea Association has raised concern over the acute financial crisis. And they are saying that cost of production has become much higher than what they are being offered as market price. So there is a difference between cost of production and the market price. And this is why they are claiming that tea industry is in acute financial crisis. Fine. So you already know that UPSC has asked question based on tea board, coffee board, etc. As you can see here, that UPSC asked question that with reference to the tea board in India, consider the following statements, and you had to identify the correct statement. Now try to attempt this question and let us know your answer in the comment box, and quickly take up the practice question now. Question says, with reference to tea plant, consider the following statements. First statement says, tea grow well in extreme temperature. Now this statement is incorrect because it grows in moderate range of temperature, which ranges from 13 to 30 degrees Celsius. Okay. Now second statement says rainfall required for tea plantation ranges from 150 to 250 centimeter. Now this statement is correct. However, there are some tea species which we can find in the area where lower level of rainfall is there, lower than 150 centimeter. But in general, the rainfall requirement is 150 to 250 centimeter. Now the third statement says that tea plants prefer well-drained, acidic soils rich in organic matter. Now this statement is again correct, as they can grow in variety of soils, namely clay loam, sandy loam, as laterites. So yes, they are well drained, acidic in nature, and rich in organic matter. So as you had to find the correct statements, our answer would be B, that is 2 and 3 only. Further, answer for this PYQ is D, that is 1 and 4. Head office is in Kolkata, and regulatory body is attached to Ministry of Commerce, not the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, as I said, an important news featured in Indian Express explains section that giant ozone hole found over Antarctica. This explained section covers reason to worries, why we should worry about this phenomena and this finding. As far as your syllabus is concerned, GS paper 3 clearly mentions environmental pollution and degradation. Apart from that, your prelim syllabus also talks about current events of national and international importance. So again, we will be covering some informations related to this news through our practice MCQ. But before moving to that, this article says that there are some meteorological and chemical uh, properties which are unique to the Antarctica. And that is why this hole is found here. So let us cover them one by one. First is the halogen gases, the presence of halogen gases. Now, these are uniformly distributed, but their effects are more pronounced in Antarctica. Secondly, the second reason is cold temperature. Now, the polar stratospheric clouds, which play a key role in ozone depletion, form at very low temperatures, which is more common phenomena in Antarctica, the low temperatures. So this polar stratospheric clouds, which complement the formation of which play a key role in ozone depletion, are easily found there. Second, isolation. Now, Antarctic air is more isolated in winter, intensifying condition for ozone depletion. The temperature drops further and more the condition for formation of such clouds. And how these clouds affect them? That they amplify the abundance of reactive chlorine gases, which leads to ozone destruction. Now, large PSC, that is polar stratospheric clouds, particles cause nitric acid removal, prolonging further ozone destruction. So these were the reasons which this article enlisted as cause of ozone hole over the Antarctic. Now let us take up the practice question. In 2015, UPSC asked a question based on ozone depletion. Question was, which one of the following is associated with the issue of control and phasing out of the use of ozone depleting substances? Option were Bretton Woods, Montreal, Kyoto, Nagoya. Try to attempt this question and give your answer in the comment box. But before that, let us quickly take up the practice MCQ. Now the question says that with reference to ozone, consider the following statements. Statement 1 says, tropospheric ozone by absorbing harmful UV radiations act as a good ozone. Now this statement is incorrect, as it is stratospheric ozone which is termed as good ozone. When tropospheric ozone is there, it is called bad ozone because it causes eye irritation, it causes breathing problems. So the good ozone term is associated with stratospheric ozone and not the tropospheric ozone. So this statement is incorrect. Second statement says ozone's pungent odor can be detected even in low concentrations. Now this statement is correct because the term ozone, the origin of the word ozone, is a Greek term which means smell. So this is a property of ozone that it creates a pungent odor even if it is there in low concentration. So this statement is correct. Now the next statement says the Montreal Protocol of 1987 targeted and set controls on ozone depleting substances. Now this statement is correct. How? Because there are certain measures for controlling the ozone depleting substance in which Vienna Convention of 1985, Montreal Protocol of 1987 are very important. And to this Montreal Protocol, there are three key amendments, namely London Amendment, Copenhagen Amendment, and Kigali Amendment. The details regarding all these convention, protocol, and amendments are provided in the PDF. So, this statement is correct. The statement 2 and 3 are correct. So, our answer would be B, that is only 2 are correct. Answer for this PYQ is B, that is Montreal Protocol. That brings us to our discussion on the mains, and the first topic that we are going to cover is caste census. It has been featuring in news since Bihar, state government of Bihar has published its report on caste census, and which found that there are 63%, there is a 63% population out of the overall around 13 crore population of Bihar. There are 63% OBCs and EBCs, that is extremely backward caste. Now these numbers are way higher than what it was assumed till now. Okay, so now this has revived the demand of conduct of caste census, and opposition parties are demanding caste census throughout India. So in this discussion, what we are going to cover? We are going to cover the census itself, that why census is important. Okay, what are the what is the need of conducting census? Now, when census is there, why there is a demand of caste census? While discussing that why there is a demand, there are two sides. Now, one side is putting arguments in favor of conducting caste census, while other side is putting arguments against the conduction of caste census. And while doing this discussion, we will be covering briefly the process of census, in which we will be covering prelims specific information. So, as you know, the context of these news, the articles which are featuring while since last 2 3 days, I guess, are basically based on the recent report of Bihar government, which was released, and now there is a renewed demand that it should be conducted on pan India basis. So, let us start our discussion. And the first thing that you must understand is the census itself, the need for census, why we need a census. Is there any constitutional provision, or is there any issue that we want to address? So, to understand this, you must understand that any nation which is in existence, what are the two important things for it? The first is the territory. The second is the population. Fine. So, for a nation, two things are important. First is territory, and second is population. Now, you have drawn the map, the boundaries are almost settled. Now comes the population. Now, a modern by saying state, I mean national government or the central government. Fine. So, a modern state has two responsibilities, basically two responsibilities. What are those? First is security. Second is well-being of this population. Fine. Security has two components, that is law and order. But the important component is well-being. Now, in order to ensure this well-being of the population, the well-being means providing health apparatus, providing infrastructure like roads, railways, providing education, providing jobs, that is employment, providing shelter. In all this function, what is the requirement? You must have a sound data, a scientific data, a collection of appropriate data. You must understand must understand the composition of your population. Only then you can do justice to the well-being intention, the intention of doing well-being for your population. So these intention demand the data. And from where you can get the data? The census. It is collection of demographic data. Now just take an example to understand it completely. Now suppose India got independence in 1947, and census exercise started in 1881, and continued till 1931. 41 was kind of abandoned because of World War. Now, Government of India decides that we will not be conducting the census anymore. Now, this is the data that we have today. Just imagine. Now, on the basis of this data, government decided to connect city A with city B. Why? Because this data shows that these two cities have large number of population residing there. Now, this is 2023. there is a high probability that there are some other cities like C, D, E, which have grown exponentially. And now they need a connectivity, not these two. So what will happen? The government will have a misallocated priority. The government will invest in a wrong policy decision. The need lies between C and D, and you end up creating infrastructure between A and B. And that is why we need a regular data. So census exercise is conducted at every 10 years to keep government updated about the composition and the spread of population. And with this data, government can create or can align its policies for the well-being of its population. Fine. So how it is done? So as I told that we have census since 1881, and for your knowledge, there are three very interesting points that Aine Akbari, Arthashastra, as well as Rig Veda, they all have some form of census which are explained in these text also. They also have talked about importance of census and data. While in modern India, the first census exercise is started in the year 1881 and it continued till 1931, as we have understood. After the independence, the census exercise fell under the union government, domain of the union government. And union government, in exercise of its power under Article 246, enacted Census Act of 1948. Now, according to this Census Act, the Office of Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India under the Ministry of Home Affairs conducts census at an interval of 10 years. So, first census of independent India was conducted in the year 1951. Fine. And after that, every year, every 10 year, census exercise is conducted, and we are nearing the 16th census exercise, which is scheduled. We have started the census exercise for 2021. Sorry, it is the 16th census of independent India. Now you know that why there is need for census and how it is conducted. These are some basic information which were important, particularly who conducts census, when census is conducted. These informations are important from the prelims perspective. However, you must have an understanding of regarding the background of demand of caste census, because everything is going fine. Census exercise is going. There are various socio-economic data. There are various analysis of those data. Then one must ask a question: why there is a demand of caste census at first place? So answer lies in the census exercise itself. Census exercise itself have several challenges and demerits, which we will cover in some other session. This news is related to the caste census particularly, so we will be covering the issues regarding caste census. Okay, so why the demand of caste census? Now understand this as since 1951 till 2011, every census of India had data upon SC, ST, Adivasis, and Dalit population. Okay. But it omitted data, separate data on OBC and EBC population. So there is no data available regarding OBC and EBC population. Now you must be wondering, but there are affirmative action. There is reservation for OBCs, isn't it? How come they reached to a conclusion to provide a 27% reservation to OBCs? Answer lies in Mandal Commission. Now Mandal Commission, because since 1951 there was no data on OBC, took refuge of the last census of 1931 and extrapolated and estimated a population share of 52% for the OBC. So in 80s, it was estimated on the basis of data of 1931 that population may be around 52%. Now this estimation, on the basis of this estimation, reservation was provided, which was 27%. Now comes another thing. Why 27%? Why not more? Because there was a very important judgment, that is Indra Sani judgment, which had a cap on reservation, that is 50% only. So in order to accommodate the reservation within the limit of 50%, OBCs were provided 27% reservation. Then you will ask, what is the problem? Problem lies in another event which happened few years back. Now, if you can recall, recently government passed the bill to provide 10% reservation to the EWS community under for people under general category. Now this 10% reservation breached the cap of 50%. Now comes the demand. First, that you have used the data of 1931. It is not it is not correct. Second, now you have already breached the ceiling of 50% by giving EWS. Why should not OBCs and EBCs why should not they be given greater number of reservation? Now here was the demand. Now why there are clashes? Because there are some proponent who on the basis of these arguments are trying to put their demand that there should be a caste census, and there are proponents who are opposing this idea. So let us look at them one by one. So proponent, now there was a Rohini commission which was formulated and under Article 340 of the Constitution. Now they found very kind of disturbing or very disheartening things, that we aimed for elevation of those who were deprived, underprivileged, but the finding of Rohini commission was rather disheartening. Okay, so it found that 97% of all jobs and educational seats have gone to just 25% of all subcastes identified. And around 25% of these jobs and seats went to just 10 OBCs community. Just 10. While there are 983 OBC communities. Now, 1/3 of the total had almost zero representation in jobs and admission in educational institution. So problem is lying within the subcategorization of OBC, and that is why it proposed to divide 27% reservation for the caste on the central list into 4 subcategories. So when it recommended, with those two reasons, people started demanding caste census. Now, why? Why there is a need for caste census? What are the arguments include that it will help in rationalizing the benefits. How? Because it will help in getting the correct data, which will further help in rationalizing the schemes, policy, and it will bring an element of objectivity into it. Okay, better targeted, better planned, better addressed. So once you have a correct data, you can do this. Otherwise, the findings of Rohini commissions will keep on occurring again and again, that some parts are milking away all the benefits while others are sitting idle. Second, now, since independence, you are providing the reservation in various educational institutions and jobs and all. Now, to assess the impact of these actions, you must be having a caste-based data. That how much they are helpful in the elevation of these castes. Thirdly, again, as with the other government schemes, with correct data, it will minimize the exclusion and inclusion errors. Fine. Now, there are some contemporary demands also, rising demands. Like if you can recall that Kapus, Marathas, Jats, there are several communities which are demanding the OBC status. Now, to address these contemporary demands, you must be having the contemporary data. Your policies and decisions should not be based on data of 1931. Fine. Then, as the Rohini Commission suggested and found that benefits are being milled away or sided by few of the OBCs, so there is a need of subcategorization so that the benefit should reach to the last person. Because in OBCs itself, you have seen in the data that out of 983 OBC communities, only one third, out of 983, one third of the total had no representation in jobs and admissions. And here you saw that 25% of the jobs went to only 10 OBCs communities. That is a big share. So it will help in the subcategorization and it will help to optimize your actions. Now, there is a constitutional mandate also from the virtue of Article 340, which talks about forming of a backward commission to inquire about position of OBCs in India. Now, to inquire about position and condition of OBC in India, you must have a correct, scientific, objective, and contemporary data. So, it is a constitutional mandate also, which you must fulfill. Now, there are arguments against also. So, let us have a look at them too. Now, the proponents who are against this idea of caste census argue that it will subvert India's anti-caste struggle. They say that since independence, we always try to eliminate we always aspire to annihilate caste system, but such exercises will further reinforce caste identities and will defeat the India's anti-caste struggle. Further, These moves that demand for caste based census are often termed or are being seen as a vote bank politics, because and there is a basis for such claims, because such demands, you will always hear such demand during the elections, or the elections are nearing. One can argue that they get more kind of priority when elections are near, but still, fact is fact. Whenever there is an election around, there would be a protest and demand for uh, this reservation. So proponents say that it is not demand of the people itself, it is more about vote bank politics. Now, lastly, proponents who are against say that it will create a domino effect, and the demand for reservation will come from all the section of society, and to fulfill them is not practically possible, and it will result into social disharmony. Fine. So with over around 25,000 subcasts and around 3,000 castes, we must tread carefully, because yes, it is an unending demand which will create a domino effect. The rationalization of schemes is very important, but the caste based census should be done after a thorough thought, without having any political intention, or rather say ill political intention behind it. So that brings us to the second topic of today's discussion, which is about the hunger index. Now, as per this news article, now India, India ranked around, sorry. Now, this news article featured on page number 1 of the Hindu newspaper, and India ranks 111 out of 125 countries in the hunger index. Now, previous year, India's rank was 107. Now, issue is, though this report has put India in a serious category, serious hunger category, and another important fact, which is important from another fact which is important from examination perspective, is that this report is published by Concern International with collaboration with Welthunger Hilfe. So these are the two institutions which combined to bring out this report, and this report uses four basic criteria to judge the intensity of hunger in any country, and according to that, India slipped from 107 to 111. Okay. Now, government of India is kind of has rejected this report. Government of India just rejected this report on two counts. First, government is saying that out of the four criteria, three is related to children's, and report that you are giving is for the entire population. We will see the criteria one by one. We will take up the criteria and what are they in brief, so that your prelims pointers can be covered. And then we will move on to discuss the hunger aspect in detail, so that your mains aspect gets covered too. So government of India is raising question over the methodology itself. It is saying that it is flawed. Firstly, they are saying that it is using four criteria, and three of them are related to children only, and providing a report for the entire population. Secondly, they are saying that the fourth criteria, that is undernourishment, the survey is done on the basis of opinion poll, and you will be surprised to know the sample size of this opinion poll. Sample size is just 3,000. Now, for the population of 125 crore, sample size of 3000 is not justified. Now, this is the argument of India. Now, if you will look into the syllabus, the social justice part mentioned in GS paper 2 is there, which relates to health, hunger, and every poverty and vulnerable section. And hunger touches all these things. Fine, we will see in the discussion. Apart from that, your important report and indices have featured in UPSC prelims examination time and again. So, first take a look at a mains question which came in the year 2018. It was a 15 marker question. Question says, how far do you agree with the view that focus on lack of availability of food as the main cause of hunger takes the attention away from ineffective human development policies in India? It was a 15 marker question. Now, just a moment. Now, this is the previous year question asked in 2016, which says that which of the following are the indicator used by the IFPRI to compute the Global Hunger Index report? Three options were given. You had to select the correct code. Try to attempt this question and give your answer give your answer in the comment box given below. This is your practice question, which again which is framed on a similar line, and we will try to attempt this question after a brief discussion about the report itself, which covers the prelims specific understanding. Meanwhile, read the question, that which of the following indicators are included in the global hunger index score of a country? Child stunting, child mortality, child wasting, and undernourishment. So here you are, that this diagram represents the composition of global hunger index. You can see that undernourishment, that is inadequate food supply, is having 1/3 weightage. Child mortality, that is death of child before attaining the age of 5 years, so it is also having weightage of 1/3. Okay. Apart from this, the third aspect is child undernutrition, which includes wasting and stunting. Both are having 1/6 weightage. Now, what is wasting and what is stunting? Understand this with this figure. Now, this person, that the first image represent the normal weight and normal height. Okay, this is the standard. Now, the second person, if you will look, the person is having the same height, that is normal height, but is thinner. Now, this guy is of normal weight, but this guy is thinner. This phenomena is termed as wasted. Okay. Secondly, third figure, if you will look, that this guy is shorter than the normal height. Okay, shorter than the normal height, but weight is okay, weight is fine. Now, this guy, this phenomena is termed as stunted. Okay. Another important factor which you should keep in mind, that a prolonged hunger causes chronic malnutrition, and result of which is stunting. A prolonged hunger creates chronic situation, which results into intergenerational malnutrition, and which will result into stunting. You will find a section of population having shorter heights than other parts of the other sections of the population. So it is result of a prolonged hunger. While when the uh, length of hunger is relatively shorter than the what we can term as a chronic hunger, we call it acute hunger. And wasting is an outcome of acute hunger. Okay, so acute hunger short term, chronic hunger long term. If long term hunger is there, stunting would be the result. If short term hunger would be there, wasting would be there. So you have seen that all the four criteria, that is child stunting, child mortality, that is 0 to 5 years of age, child wasting, and undernourishment, all are the factors, all are the indicators. So our option would be D, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. And on similar line, here also undernourishment, child stunting, and child mortality has been mentioned. So our answer would be C, that is 1, 2, and 3. Fine. So before any further, let us take a brief of this discussion, that what is hunger and why we should be concerned, why hunger is a matter of concern for any country. Okay, then we will see what are the reasons for prevailing hunger in India specific reasons. Then we will see what government is doing in this regard, and we will end our discussion with some suggestions. Fine. So before moving on to anything, let us understand what is hunger and why it should concern anyone or any country. So here is the definition, that hunger is a condition in which a person cannot eat sufficient food to meet basic nutritional needs for a sustained period. Where a person cannot eat sufficient food to meet basic nutritional need, and it can manifest itself in different ways, namely undernourishment, malnutrition, and wasting. So it is not about, it is not it is related to the basic needs, basic nutritional need. Now if you are not having the resources or the access for basic nutritional need for a sustained period, it is termed as hunger. Then why it should worry us? Reasons are manifold, starting from individual level to a country. Reasons are manifold. First is, hunger impacts a person at an individual level. How? It impacts the very well-being of an individual. Well-being how? Both mentally and physically. You have seen stunting, wasting, those are physical manifestation of hunger. What about the cognitive skills? What about the mental ability? Don't you think like you might have heard about news is that CM went to a school and found that class 10th student is unable to spell something, class 5th student is unable to make a sentence which he or she should have done in class 1 only. So what we do, we superficially say that these are the teaching levels, which is true to some extent. But fact is, the cognitive ability gets impacted due to hunger. You are not getting nutrition. So the physical aspect is on one side. You are stunted, you are wasted, you are obese. That is not related to hunger, but yes, malnutrition. But for stunting, wasting, etc., Yes, physically you are impacted, but there is there is an impact on mentality, the cognitive ability also. Now you are not physically fit and you are not mentally fit. What will be impacted? It will impact your productivity. And it is not just you or me. There would be many. And thus, the cumulative productivity of the society will take a dip. The productivity will fall. And if WHO's estimates are to be believed, India is spending around $10 billion losing, not spending, losing in spending on issues related to hunger, the illness, the death, the treatment, the hygiene, the sanitation. $10 billion every year India is losing just because of low level of productivity. Fine. So as an individual, you are impacted. As an uh, as a society, you are impacted. Now, the productivity part mainly encompasses the physical aspect, mental aspect. What about the educational attainment? Now you have a low level of cognitive ability. You are not able to absorb everything that you are reading or doing. It will impact your educational attainment, which will further kind of reinforces the intergenerational deficiency, nutritional deficiency, because now you are not educated, your educational attainment are not of that level. Fine. So so is so it is going to be a persistent cycle which you will transfer to the coming generation. How? Because you yourself don't know. Take an example of a woman. Okay, now she is not literate about the she is not aware about the nutritional need of her body. She is not aware. Now she herself is weak. This weakness will this undernourishment will be transferred to the baby. So it will impact the present. It is impacting, rather say it is impacting the present as well as the future of India. So cumulatively, you are not able to perform. You have a low productivity. You have a low learning capabilities. You are physically and mentally not well. So overall, the growth of a nation, the economic growth, the social growth, it all will be negatively impacted. Now this we discussed in with regard to individual, social and national level. What if government wants to do something? Hunger is an obstruction there also. Now hunger, you know that it impacts the vulnerable and marginalized. Fine. Now every government wants to promote equality. It wants to provide social justice. But now when the vulnerables are disproportionately affected by the hunger, how will government achieve its target of reducing inequality? It will impede government, it will obstruct government, because there is always a section which is deprived physically, deprived mentally, and the overall productivity is also low. Inequality will be there always if hunger is there. Further, now if hunger is there, there is an issue of food security which is threat to the social stability. There would be conflicts, there would be demands, there would be protest, there would be unrest. So it is also a prerequisite for a stable social atmosphere. And lastly, as you know, that SDG 2 talks about the food security, the elimination of hunger, doubling of farmer income. And you all must be knowing India has ratified and India is a party to this commitment. So, as part of global commitment, India needs to remove the hunger in all its format. So, what we just talk like, okay, you don't have enough food, you don't have the necessary amount of nutrition for a sustained period, okay, you are hungry. Just imagine the impact at every level, every policy, every you may say initiatives of government will go in vain, because these impacts are deep rooted. They are starting from an individual and going up to a country. And according to UNICEF, if you'll take the data, out of 3 malnutrition child, 1 is in India. This is the level of malnutrition in India. And now it is not just about child. Women's are there, anemic, lack of vitamin, proteins, and other, you may say, indicators. And now the triple burden of disease was in news recently, 2-3 years back. So hunger altogether will impede the overall growth of a country and a society. Okay, so what are the reasons behind India's persistence of hunger? Why, after all the efforts, we have failed to address it? Why we ranked so bad? First is, we talked about educational attainment. Now just think about it. Why just talk about female literacy? We all, how much we are aware of the nutritional need of our body. There is a general illiteracy in terms of nutritional awareness. Now, if you will take it to the base level or starting level, this illiteracy is there for women also. Now, the women herself is undernourished. So the milk that she is providing to the baby, which is exclusive, which should be exclusive till 6 months, is again undernourished milk. That intergenerational undernourishment is going on one by one. Okay, an undernourished women feeding a child. So the chronic, I told you, a long period of hunger, a long period of undernourishment will result into chronic outcomes, the stunting. So here it is that we don't know, we are not aware about the importance of nutrition. The nutrient awareness is not there. So we are facing the problem of inappropriate child feeding. WHO says it is a must for 6 months, and we are not providing that because we are not at all aware of the importance itself. And even if we are providing, most of it is undernourished. Fine. And as we discussed, that low female literacy is again an issue. We saw that how when you don't know about nutrition, you are bound to do things which are not appropriate. Same is the case. We often say that women's dietary habit, that they get food in last and they sacrifice their food because they don't know what is required, what is necessary, what is important. They are being feeded with the cultural nuances that you have to do this or that to be a good wife, a good daughter, a good sister. Okay, so lack of literacy is again impacting the nutritional aspect of India's population because they are not aware about the nutritional value. Thirdly, poor sanitation. Now, how sanitation is impacting hunger? Now, if you know that if your immunity is weak and you are suffering from various diseases, your body will be less receptive to the nutrients and other vital elements. And same is the case with the poor sanitation. When you are practicing a poor sanitation, or you are lacking hygiene, then you are bound to uh, fall sick very frequently. Now, this frequent sickness cycle will bring down your immunity, and it directly impacts your intestine and other important vital body organs, and your body becomes less receptive to the nutrients. Fine. So what happens, if you are aware of the diarrhea, it is one of the biggest cause of wasting, because body becomes less receptive to the nutrients. So again, poor sanitation practices are fueling towards the hunger problem in India. Now comes micronutrient deficiency. Now there are two reasons for it. First, our dietary habit. Second, our cropping pattern. Our dietary habit is dominated by wheat and rice, which are very rich in carbohydrate but practically have no minerals or vitamins in them. And thus, as our demand, our dietary habit, our production pattern. Apart from that, if you can relate it to the subsidies of the government, subsidies are also promoting the cropping pattern towards being monocrop, but that is not our matter of concern. Basically, this monocropping pattern and dietary habit is again making us nutrient deficient, because we are relying on carbohydrate, leaving behind all the vitamins and necessary minerals. Then comes, here you talked about issues at individual level, issues at national level, like cropping pattern and dietary habit, the societal issue. Now look at the supply side constraint. Now there are food inflation, which directly impacts the accessibility. If you can recall various committees in our previous discussion, we found that around 30 crore people are living below poverty line. Now, food inflation directly impacts these 30 crore at least. Inflation impacts more than this population, but these are going to be certainly impacted by food inflation, and thus the accessibility gets hampered, and thus again the food intake and undernourishment. Lastly, the limitations of schemes like ICDS. The coverage is not proper. There is exclusion and inclusion error. There is rampant corruption. The target beneficiaries are not identified. There are several issues related to the structural functioning of the schemes. So, what government is doing? Government has taken many steps like fortification of food grains, milk, and now they are talking about oils and all. Apart from that, the Poshan Abhiyan, which is an umbrella scheme, which covers the pregnant women, lactating women, as well as child. And it has subsumed various schemes like ICDS and National Health Mission. Apart from that, recently PM Poshan Shakti Nirman was launched, in which one hot cooked meal is provided to the students of government and government aided schools. Further, to counter the inflation issue, price stabilization fund scheme has been launched. So these are the schemes, but as we saw that there are various limitations, structural defects in these schemes. So still, India is kind of coping up or trying to address this issue, and doing a few things which are in right direction, like our honorable prime minister's focus on popularizing the millets, which is a very good thing because they contain a high amount of nutrition at a low cost. So the first measure that should be taken is popularization of low cost, nutrient rich food. Further, food fortification should be expanded and should be uh, taken up at a rapid pace. As we saw, there are structural issues. So there is a need of uh, kind of revamping of administration associated with the procurement and distribution, plus public distribution system which must include community participation, because only then it would be fruitful. Further, what can be done? The coverage can be broadened and better targeted. All these points in details has been provided in the PDF itself. I am just writing the keywords for your understanding. So these are some measures which government of India can further take uh, to to contain this menace of hunger and malnutrition. So that's all for today's session. Stay tuned for more such updates. Thank you.